So, hi David, and welcome, and thank you very much for being here today with us. You are probably the father of AR, VR. You started 20 years ago. Where was I 20 years ago? No, I don't even remember. Probably struggling with my internet connection.
Don't tell me you were like in kindergarten or something.
No, almost. No, just kidding. So no, it's really a pleasure because we talk about innovation, in particular innovation matters. So I'm really curious about today because we need to talk about technology as well. There's no innovation without technology, and AR,
Right.
VR is probably now becoming more and more necessary because of COVID-19, right? But I think you are going to tell us a bit more about that. But first, a bit about you, a few words, and then the floor is yours.
Sure. So my name is David Polinchock. I'm one of the co-founders of the Brand Experience Lab here in New Jersey, just across the river from Manhattan proper. And pre-COVID, although it's working post-COVID as well, the idea of the space was many times we're talking about these innovation tools and technologies that without being able to play with them, there's no context and you don't know what they mean. So if you've never put on a head-mounted display, there's Lindsay, see, she's a real person. If you've never put on a head-mounted display, then you have no reference point to understand what virtual reality is. So we wanted to build this playground here where we have enough room so that companies can gather and we can bring in emerging technologies and people can see how they work and how they work in specific environments. So that's what we're doing today. I've been running labs since early 2000. I've built labs for AT&T. I've worked on PwC's innovation space. I helped design a innovation space for Spotify. And now I'm back to doing my own gig.
In what is it a startup? Tell us more about your project.
Yeah, so we actually took the space last summer. So we are a startup, but we're a spin-off from an established company.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So we have that great hybrid of, you know, when the landlord said, I need 5 years of financials, we had that. And so that's been really great to have that parent company behind us and those resources behind us. So we took the space last summer. We worked on the space all last fall, you know, redoing it and putting in walls and doing the infrastructure that we needed to do. And we came back into the new year ready to welcome companies into the space, just as COVID hit. So we all went home, as you do. But let's see if I can do this because this is kind of easy to move with this tablet so you can see. So I'm in one of our conference rooms.
Perfect. This is what I call a dynamic presentation.
But this is actually our space.
Oh, wow, wow.
So
it's
let me
huge.
get away from this one wall here. Yeah, so we have a very big space here that we can play with. But it also means when there's a couple of us here, it's very easy to social distance.
That's the brand experience. That's the experience lab. How do you call it now?
The Brand Experience Lab. Yep.
Brand Experience Lab. Yeah, that you started in 2003, I guess, in running experiments such as the AudienceGames.
Correct.
I've seen the video in those cinemas.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to do, and it is really the model we've honed better today in terms of finding the right emerging technologies out there in the world, but also putting them into a way that they have an actual business case for being used.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can't imagine more than 15 years of experience running experiments because this is so new. You mentioned a few minutes ago, I couldn't even see the curve. It was the start. Right. It was that small dot. That small dot on a line, no curve. Yeah, no, really exciting. And so where we are now, what is the state of the art of this type of technologies in particular? Is it in the space of advertisement, right?
Yeah, most of what we work with is brand storytelling, if you will, in the broad category. We focus on the real world, so we focus on physical stores, out of home, movie theater entertainment, and things like that. Although we, because of AR, we're seeing some really interesting technologies combining television broadcast and AR and things like that. So we are open to play with a lot of different technologies, but really looking for ways to engage consumers at a time when they don't want to be engaged that much.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they want to be engaged in a very different way.
And is it now the time for this to become, let's say, mainstream? I thought it was a few years ago with that famous app, Pokemon Go.
Yes, with Pokemon Go. It's like everything else. When I worked for AT&T, it was the year of mobile for about 15 years. Every year we'd say, this is the year mobile is really going to be big. I think it's like everything else. One of the things we talk about here is with a lot of emerging technology today, people look for that one big hit that's going to change the whole world with the tech. And the truth is, there's a million little hits that need to happen, right? I need to figure out a way that it's valuable to me. I might look at VR and say there's no value to it for me in what I do every day, but in medical technology, VR is changing the world.
Yeah.
So I think we're starting to see it's, when I first started doing VR, the minimum investment in equipment was about $100,000. So it was never coming to the house, now you can buy a Quest for $400. So we're seeing a broader use and more people who are able to play and experiment. Although again, especially, I'm sure it's the same way in London. The thing about VR as a specific is with Quest and with HTC Vive, it gave you room scale ability so that you could walk around an environment as opposed to having to be spaced in one place. Well, when the Quest came out about a year and a half ago, all my friends in New York were like, oh my God, I got my Quest, it's so exciting. And then that was their morning social media post. And their afternoon social media post was all, my spouse is pissed off because I had to move the dining room table to play with it. And again, that's why we have the space we have. We wanted a lot of space so that people could really, you need a blank room to experiment with room scale VR.
Yeah, to play around,
And that's the canvas we're building here now.
Yeah, I've been playing around with Google Maps. There's a feature now with I'm going to call it AR, VR, just to simplify.
Yes.
But you are right. This is just like probably recently big data, because everybody talks about big data, but nobody's doing whatever the big data is. Probably similar to the App Store. And the power of the App Store is the number of useful apps we have in there. So talking about technology without having a proper use of that technology, it's just talking about technology. So
it's just a thing, right?
Yeah, it's just a thing. Yeah, that's it. So I'm really curious to understand where you are, where the technology is, and yeah. I don't know if you want to share your screen, the presentation.
I can do that. Let's see. Yes, I have a presentation here. And we've looked at a couple different types of technologies, if you will, and sort of categories. And we've also looked at the big picture. This is just a little bit about us. That's our space, but you've seen it live now. We have about 14,000 square feet here in Jersey City, so it really does give us a big space to play with. So here's one of the things, and I love bringing in really old things because it shows us how little some things have changed. So this Will Rogers was a early 20th century philosopher, humorist here in the States. And he said, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And that's what we see many companies doing, especially in innovation. They get hooked into something and then they stay there, and then 20 years later, they're still doing the same thing and not innovating. And I don't know if you can see this one, but it's funny because it really talks about, there are so many ads that, you know, we have to really play up our words, and sometimes we lie to get people to pay attention to us. And the reason I use this particular quote is because it was written by Samuel Johnson somewhere in 1740 or 1750. So if you think about a time in the mid 1700s that people were complaining there were too many ads in the world, and you think about the world we're living in today, you can see we're not always delivering messaging, we're delivering noise. And this is a great quote from Arthur C. Clarke, that we don't care how the technology works for the most part. Some people do, but the vast majority of people, I've spent time in the television industry, and we all watch TV. I couldn't tell you how a television signal works. It's magic. It starts someplace and it shows up at my house. I don't know anything about how it happens in between. And that's how most of us are with tech. And then again, from long ago, 1970s, an abundance of information creates a scarcity of attention. And that's because of COVID in particular, that creates a huge opportunity in the physical world, because our digital world has really been slammed with content and information. And I don't know what it's like in other parts in the world, but thanks to the fact that I didn't want to pay for a cable company anymore because it was too expensive, I now probably pay 40% more to 20 different companies because I have to pay for this channel and Hulu and Netflix and CBS All Access and Amazon Prime. And I just got Apple TV, that's costing me more money. So, you know, there's so many times, and, you know, I will find myself now, I have a lot of ADD some days, on Netflix doing nothing but watching the trailers for shows, and I'll do that for 2 hours without ever actually watching a show because it's so overwhelming to try to figure out what show I want to watch tonight. You know, so, and then for us, this is where we spend a lot of time, is looking at how we make physical relevant again. I was on the phone with a friend yesterday. We do a lot of events. We see each other a lot of events every year. Zoom and Google Meet and whatever is fine if we're doing this kind of thing, but it's really bad for the serendipity of being at a live event where you run into somebody in the hallway and you meet somebody new. It's still really bad if I need to feel what my fabric of the shirt feels like. It's impossible through any digital formats today. They're working on it. So that physical world has become even more important. And again, I don't know what it's like in other places in the world. Boy, as soon as they opened up malls here in the United States, they were packed the next day. Because we had such a pent-up demand to get out of our houses and go do something. We have some friends, and we'll go over to their house for dinner in a very big backyard on a patio deck. And you would think we were going away for a week's vacation. We get in the car and we're like, hoo-hoo, we're seeing another human being, you know? It really becomes critical. And then millennials and Gen Z are totally different animal than my generation as a boomer. They're really on experience, and they're really on differentiation, and they're really on personalization, things that my generation didn't care about as much. And that was born from, and particularly today, we need fun. You know, and we look at tech that can bring fun into the world. This is my daughter, Sydney, at the Dolphin Research Center down in Grassy Keys, Florida. And the reason we came up with this whole idea, and we talk about this, is we were buying Sydney some riding boots. She rides horses. And she was very angry because she had boots and she didn't understand why we're buying new boots, and her old boots were fine. And my wife and I were thinking it's time to buy new boots because we had taped the toes of her shoes closed. And that's, to us, that's a time when you should get new shoes. And at one point, Sydney was just, and I said, dude, I don't get it. You're mad that I'm buying you something. I don't really understand. I love it because you're my kid, and this means I don't have to spend money on you, but I don't really get it. And she said, I have shoes. There's no reason for you to buy shoes for something I have. I don't want you to spend the money. And I said, again, love you, child, for having that mentality, but for you to go to dolphin camp and for you to do one other school trip that she did that summer, we spent about $6,000. So appreciate that you're complaining that I'm spending $100 on new riding boots, but really you don't mind spending money if there's something more than a product at the end of it. So, you know, we look at, if you're a store that's just offering me price, I can do that online today. In the States, people shopped online for groceries, but not a whole lot, because people still wanted to look at that fresh fruit or the vegetables or the cut of meat. They really weren't ready to trust somebody in the store to pick that steak for them. Until COVID happened and we had no choice. And now you see, I'm not going to the grocery. I love to shop, so I particularly go, but a lot of people don't anymore. When I go to my local grocery store, there's usually as many store employees shopping for other people as there are people actually shopping. So we talk a lot about this, you know, what I don't understand, because if you look at my hair, you can see I don't understand why women pay money to go someplace to have somebody blow dry their hair. Never will be something that I will convince myself I need to do. My wife, on the other hand, does not understand why every time a new phone comes out, I need to spend another $700 on it, right? It has value to me, I will spend the money. If it doesn't have value to me, then we just argue about the price. And, you know, the last piece, and then we'll hop into the tech, is when I go to a place, I either want to save time or I want to savor time. So nothing annoys us as human beings more than going to a fast food restaurant that's really slow, or going to a very expensive restaurant where you feel rushed, because it's sort of beating up against what they do. And then for us, I'm going to just zip through this to get to, yep. So we're seeing, particularly in the physical world, people playing with all kinds of new technologies. On the right is a art installation facility here in New York City that, you know, everything about it is large screen and interactive. Show fields on the left, their whole staff are actors. You know, I was introduced to Mrs. Schofield. I talked to her for half an hour. It wasn't until I went home and Googled her that I found out she was an actress and what she was doing. As we look at the tech, we're sort of looking at these buckets of technology that everybody's kind of playing with right now. You know, how are we increasing curbside and online shopping, and how do we make that work? There are categories that we don't shop for at all. You know, we pick up candy because it's at the checkout counter, and while we're waiting on the grocery store line, we throw it into our cart. Candy is very rarely on a shopping list, except for Halloween and Valentine's Day and things like that. So what can we do to create a unique shopping experience when I'm just being online? When all I'm doing is looking at, and we're starting to see some really interesting, you know, 3D visualization technologies where I might physically walk through the store, as opposed to seeing a flat two-dimensional e-commerce experience. This is a huge area that, you know, this is one of those areas, Hugo, we were talking about where brands have been playing around with how do we not do cashiers at stores, but nobody really was doing it. But if you're thinking in a grocery store where you might have 10 people waiting in line to check out, and now you need 6 feet between each person, and you now have to dedicate 60 feet of your store for a checkout line, much easier now to be thinking about how do we not have people stop at the checkout. Whether it be Amazon Go and what they're doing, whether it be the simple thing of contactless payment, that we've been very slow in this country to adopt. The rest of the world has done it, you know, much broader and much more frequently than we have here. And these are things, there isn't a cashierless payment, a single one. There's 30 or 20 of them, 20 or 30 of them. This is one we're kind of playing to see, well, which one really works? Do they all work the same? Which one works better in which kind of environment? You know, there might be something different at a Starbucks kind of environment or a coffee shop than there is at a grocery store where I'm putting multiple items into a cart. So that's part of what we play with here at the lab. I know we're trying to figure this out. This is an interesting category because everybody loves to talk about it, but I'm not. I was very excited about it when my daughter turned 16 and could get her driver's license. I was very excited about driverless cars, but now that she doesn't have a driver's license and she could care less. But it will be interesting to see. This kind of thing can work really well in a very dense environment, like London, New York City, places like that, or very rural environment where the houses are very far apart. I don't think it works as well in suburban environments. A lot more, so this is where we're seeing augmented reality, which a couple years ago, like IKEA was playing with it because it was easy. But now we're seeing all kinds of people playing with AR from, like I said, we just saw a demonstration of a technology where if you're watching a soccer match on your TV, you're at home in your living room watching soccer, you can pull up your phone, aim it at the TV, it reads the soccer match, knows who's playing, and then overlays all kinds of information that you want on top of the game. You know, a year ago, people would have, yeah, that's cool, but nobody would have really engaged to want to do things like that. But now we also have worries about, am I bringing something into the house? You know, how clean is that couch at IKEA? So I want to make sure that it fits before I'm dealing with returns and things like that. Lego has done a great job where you can see the completed Lego project before you buy it. And it's just doing image recognition off the box. So it's a great way to get people engaged in store, and it's a fun way for parents and kids to see, is this a project we really want to undertake? Is this going to be too much for us so that we're not frustrated when we bring it home? Trying on clothes is a huge thing right now, and we're seeing all kinds of experiments in UV lighting and steam cleaning, and how do we do dressing rooms, because that's a small enclosed environment where, again, if I'm watching Hugo come out of the dressing room and he's coughing, I definitely don't want to go in the dressing room behind him. And so people are trying to figure out how you do this automatically. How do I know that when the door opens and closes, it shoots the UV light into the dressing room and cleans it before the next person comes in? Much like some of the public restrooms that you have in Europe, where you go in, somebody uses it, but when they leave and the door closes, the whole restroom gets cleaned. So we're seeing more companies kind of playing on with that tech. And because of the dressing room issue, we're seeing more people play with virtual try-on. How can I look in a magic mirror kind of tech and see what it looks like before I try it on? We were just talking earlier today, you know, we used to go into a Sephora and all kinds of people would try on the lipstick and see if that color worked, whether they were putting it on their hand or whatever. People don't want to do that today. So really looking at those kinds of technologies to say, I'm not going to buy this makeup without knowing how it looks on me. And so that's why you see things like virtual try-on mirrors that are becoming much more put out there and distributed. This was my daughter playing with the virtual dressing room. So that again, you could get some sense, this color looks bad on me, the cut looks bad on me, whatever it is, before you have to do anything. And if you think about these two areas, they also represent a great deal of expense for the retailer. Now, it used to be I tried on a shirt, I didn't like it, I left it on the the hanger in the dressing room. Somebody took it out of the dressing room, put it right back on the rack. Now we can't do that. Now we're seeing stores that will take it out of the dressing room, UV it, steam it, do something. So it's got a labor cost and it's got a technology cost. And then it has to go to another room where it sits for 24 hours before they'll let it come back on the show, you know, the floor. So, you know, we're seeing all that kind of thing to work and just, you know, we talk a lot about people need to play with everything. People, I went to the local electronics store that's literally across the street from me, and I can show you because I think I have it here and up. Every store shelf was empty. You know, why would I go to a physical store if when I walk into the store, every shelf is empty? So let's say right over here. I mean, this doesn't make any sense for me to want to, like, I don't know what the purpose of this is. So they're not, you know, is it bad inventory management? Are they not understanding what's being sold in store? Is their supply chain that disrupted that they can't put these things in the store? I don't know what the answer is, what their issue was, but this is a really bad way to get people convinced to come into a store and to shop. And it's going to take, the biggest challenge is it takes like 5 different things to come together. It takes technology on the shelf that lets the store know that the shelf is empty. It takes then tying into their point of sales system to make sure that the fact that the shelf is empty is because they've actually sold things. Then that has to tie into their enterprise resource planning system. And all of those things have to talk together, which nothing does today, because everything's been built in a vacuum and in silos. So, and that's kind of, you know, what we do here every day. People call us and say, I've got a new technology, and we say, great, and we meet with them and we understand how the tech works, and then we have another partner who looks at the finances behind the tech to make sure that that works right, and we have a third partner who knows the retail industry really well and spends his time looking at, you know, can it be used by retailers? Does it fit into simple things like if the end cap shelf is 36 inches, it's unlikely we can bring in a technology that needs 42 inches. So those practical things, and that's kind of how we do it. And then Lindsay's just joined us because that also gives us a great different point of view. You know, at 60 years old, I have a very specific point of view, not good or bad, just is. And the best way we solve problems for our clients is to make sure we have very different points of view coming in.
Precisely, that's it. Is it over? Can we open for Q&A?
Yeah, yes, yep.
All right, so thank you very much. Very good presentation. I wasn't expecting a bad presentation, of course. Great. You brought many good examples here. I've seen a few. But this is just the beginning. It's quite curious because many of these technologies, you talked about autonomous vehicles, contactless, those virtual mirrors. This is here for a while, meaning it's of course it's still expensive, but I haven't seen many organizations, trying to push this out. But now, because there's a burning platform, so COVID, we talked about this. Maybe this is the moment where we are going to see more and more, because everybody's trying to reinvent their business, not just how they do business, but the business model as well, and that changes everything, right? Yep. So, guys, feel free to unmute, ask any questions as usual. Benedict, I know you are. Yeah, I know you have a list of 10 questions minimum, so feel free to shout.
Well, actually, I have something sitting on my mind. Well, first, thanks for this presentation. This is super interesting stuff, this virtual reality. I mean, I know it from the automotive industry when they use it to learn their garages how to serve the cars, how to repair the cars. I mean, that's just like magic for me. You put on a head and then someone. And it just, I just saw it a couple of weeks ago in the Volkswagen garage, and when they did service on my car, it was like amazing. The guy never saw this car before. It was brand new and put on the glove, and that's cool.
That's what's great about the tech. Yeah.
So what I was wondering, because we had this on the weekend, it's about skincare. It's not actually what I care about, but my wife does a lot. Creams and stuff that you put on your face. Normally, what you see in Germany is like you try it and then you buy it. So you go to a cosmetic store, a drugstore or something, and then you got these samples and you try it directly on your face. You feel the texture and does it good to my skin? Yes or no, and then you buy it, which is not possible anymore.
It is not.
Exactly. So I would imagine those big companies like, I don't know, I only know the stuff that we have in our bathroom. It's like L'Oreal or, Nivea and this. They would be very interested in how to overcome this hurdle. And Corona will be there for a little bit longer. How is it possible via new technologies to have this experience? Because, with lipstick you can see, but with texture on your face, nah.
Yeah, so we actually were having that conversation internally this morning. Again, there would be a tester bottle, and everybody who was thinking about buying this cream would dip their finger in or pour it onto their finger and then put it on. There are some technologies beginning. We're not there yet, but there's a technology called ultrasonic haptics. It uses sound waves to give you the sensation of touch. So, and they're, one of the demo systems we've seen is, 100 speakers and a little thing this big. What I can give you is some rough texture right now. I can kind of give you smooth and rough, but I can't give you variance in between yet. But they are working on that so that you would be able to feel the cream, even though there's actually nothing there but the sound waves.
Cool.
It's awesome stuff, right? It's really very experimental. Started in, for accessibility, many times it'll say, press here for the elevator, press here for this. If you're blind, that's a meaningless sign, right? If you could, as you move your hand, you feel the sound waves, the button is here, I could actually activate the button through the sound waves. So that all I need to do is feel nothing, then feel something. But you'll see a lot more work in that area because it's a multi-$100 billion business that can't go away.
Yeah, that's really cool. You search for that device, whatever, that technology. We are talking about shaping the future of retail, the future of the retail experience. And the future is now due to COVID. So the question is does it mean that big players will eat all the small players because they have the money to bring these new technologies in, or is this an opportunity for smaller players to have something to say? What do you think?
Yes, I think, listen, there will be big, in this country, Amazon and Walmart both just had their best quarters ever, and Target.
Yeah.
Three big players. Where small players have a huge advantage is, first of all, they usually have much smaller footprints, so they don't have all that overhead of space that they need to worry about. And like, I remember my first trip to Portugal and being in Lisbon in sort of their hip shopping district, kind of like my Soho, or your Soho, I guess. We went out to dinner. We came out at 11 o'clock at night and every store was open, and almost every store had a DJ spinning, and they were serving champagne, and it was a big social experience. You know, yes, people were buying, because if I'm spinning a DJ and I'm giving you champagne and you're not buying anything, that's a bad business model. But people were buying and people were having a good time. That's where small businesses really have a place to shine. If I go into a small boutique here in New York City, the person working in that boutique knows everything. I have stores that we do retail visits. I have stores that we go to where they'll tell you where the fabric comes from, who made it, where it comes from, the whole thing. Whereas if you go into a big box retailer and say, can you tell me more about this thing? They're like, I got nothing. You know, it's a computer. Is it a better computer than that computer? I don't know. I guess they're both good. All right. So smaller players may not have the access to the technology, especially at first. But what they do have is that great personalization tool set called a human being that they can really take advantage of. And we spend a lot of time with retailers making them look at what makes them unique as a physical store versus a digital store. And that's where smaller brands have a much better opportunity today.
So it's still about the people. It's not about the technology. And
it's not always about the technology. And there's nothing like, the first time we went into the Amazon Go store in Seattle, that was the first store where there's cameras everywhere and you don't pay for anything. You put stuff in your pocket and you walk out the door.
Yeah.
Right? There were a lot of people working in that store. You know, they didn't just say, well, I don't need people anymore because I got this new system. Let me throw everybody out and fire them. They use people to do other things. That's where they play together.
Yeah, because every single time we talk about disruption in a specific industry, imagine I'm helping, for instance, I'm helping a startup in the property technology, and they want to disrupt that specific industry. So everybody thinks, okay, so what's going to happen to the real estate agent? Is he going to disappear? Because now buyers and sellers can find the property and sell it. And what I like to say is, no, he will do something probably more interesting.
That's right.
Because even today, probably 80% of the things he's doing is kind of bored because he's repeating activities, filling forms.
Right. That's right.
That's right. So yeah.
And what's using that example, what's interesting is certainly finding the right place can be a long process. You know, we joke, my wife and I almost divorced at some point, you know, trying to find a house that we both liked. But, you know, if you're not in the house business, I don't know how to negotiate for anything. I don't know when I look at a house, whether or not I need to argue because the hot water heater is older or the furnace is older. That's where the real estate agent has real value. Giving the information that I can't just get online to look at pictures of the house, and maybe I could get some vague information about the school district. You know, a good real estate agent really knows a lot more and can talk more deeply. And you're right, they'll stop doing all that paperwork crap that I'm sure they don't like any more than we like it.
Yeah. Maybe it's a new era of what disruption means, or ethical disruption. We do disrupt, but we also help people to find something new and better to enhance their capacity, whatever. Because in the past, it was even the definition of a startup. It's a temporary team to find a scalable business model.
Right.
It's all about scalability of the business model and profits, regardless of what happens to people. So now maybe this is me thinking out loud. In this new post-COVID world, yes, we will continue to disrupt because we really need to do that in many single areas.
Right.
But we need to help people because people are losing jobs. Right. So disruption plus COVID, people losing jobs. If we continue to aim for that scalability of the business model, killing everybody in between, I think it's not,
well, that's honestly one of my biggest personal issues with autonomous delivery vehicles. If you think like in a place like New York, you know, there's thousands of people who make a living doing bicycle messengering, delivering stuff.
Maybe in London, thousands, yeah.
Right? So we're going to save a couple bucks because first of all, we're not going to save a couple bucks because I'm going to spend $25 billion on R&D to make a shopping cart that can drive down the street by itself. Instead of just having the guy who's been doing it or the person who's been doing it do it. But there's a thing, I don't see the value proposition other than the company can make more money. And I think particularly with Gen Z and millennials, because I'm 60 years old. I believe in climate change, but honestly, by the time it's really bad, I'm not likely to be aware of it or I'm dead. My 19-year-old daughter is going to deal with it in a serious way, right? So they're looking at these things much heavier and much clearer and saying, you know, how many outfits do I need? How many of this do I need? Where I'm just, it's actually a British show year after year.
Yeah, probably. I don't watch TV, so. Yeah.
It's sort of a sci-fi kind of thing, but the patriarch, the grandmother of the family, gives a talk because everybody's complaining about the world's going to shit. And she was like, well, it's all over, you know, and it's big companies and the big companies are screwing everybody. And she goes, no, it's not. It's you. You wanted that shirt for $1. The only way that shirt could be $1 is if we only paid somebody 10 cents to make it.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing people be much more focused on that sustainability of the whole world and the ethicalness. If you're a VR person, you've been following this story very closely. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, Facebook, which owns Oculus, announced that by the end of the year, all new Oculus accounts will be required to have a Facebook account and do all their VR through Facebook. There's absolutely no value to me as a consumer for that happening. And now I have to worry that Facebook is going to take all the data of everything I do in VR and turn it into a targeting tool. It's totally messed up the VR industry. There's a lot of hot discussions. That ethics, I think we're going to be really dealing with it and a lot more. And we need some really good things like Innovation Cafe to sort of champion those ethical innovation discussions.
No, it's a hot topic at the moment. We talked about this in different forums, bringing how can I say this, sustainability to everything that we do. So it's not just innovation to make more money or to reduce costs or whatever, because usually when you talk about innovation with the CEO, he thinks about the P&L. Okay, how are you to help me to make money or to save money? That's it, straight to the point, regardless of what. So if we don't talk about this, and yes, this is a non-profit pet project that let's say that I'm hosting here, we need to talk about this more and moreover in the time is now, because people are already in pain. So I can't imagine a new entrepreneur still with the mindset of let's replace everybody with robots. I don't care about what people are going to do. No, he needs to care. about that, or else.
That's it.
Your example is very good. I shouldn't be happy to buy a shirt for £2 or whatever,
Right.
€2, because I know that someone probably spent 2 days working on that shirt and he gets $1, whatever or less than $1.
Right.
It's not fair at all. But it's my fault because I'm the one buying that shirt. That's a very good example. Yeah.
It was funny. My daughter came home one day and we had a whole discussion about free trade chocolate and the farming of sustainable chocolate and that whole thing. And she was being really like, Dad, we really need to think about this, you know? I said, that's great. Happy to do it. But so one thing you got to understand, because it's more expensive than the candy we would normally buy, we're going to buy less of it. Right? So think about that. And she, you know, she's like 8 years old. She was like, well, maybe. But then I said, well, and where does it stop? Like, do we only care about people farming chocolate? What about people making shirts? What about people making shoes? What about people growing coffee? Like, it's really hard once you start to get that. But I think it's a big area.
Yeah, circular economy, circular innovation. This is
that's right.
The topic of the moments that we need to talk even more. Maybe host a session here. I need to find an expert in this type of thing.
I know a guy, actually I know a gal whose whole business is helping companies understand circular.
Send the email over. I will make an invite.
I will do that because she's awesome. But again, like probably 8 years ago, we did some creative concepting for The Gap. And one of the things we talked about is recycling and reselling. If you have a child, you're just buying clothes every week because every week they need a new size, you know, and they wear it for 2 weeks and they outgrow it and you put it away and it's never touched again unless you have another kid or unless a family member has a child. You're now seeing places like Gap doing that kind of recycling, letting people bring their clothing back and getting a discount on new clothing because otherwise I'm just throwing it out and it's going into a landfill.
Yeah, it's not sustainable at all. Any more questions? I don't know, you, Benedict, we have someone here, Dapo. Before we let David go, enjoy probably lunch. It's 1 p.m.
Well, it's not a question, but I had, because you mentioned earlier the big players versus the small players, and I think one of the huge, or let's say, benefits of the small players is the credibility. I mean, I see it with my wife. It's always good role model.
Totally agree with you.
Well, she doesn't want to buy from the big ones, and she doesn't want to engage with the big ones. That's the point. She might buy it because, you know, one-stop shopping during Corona, you only go to one place, and she doesn't like. And she doesn't want to engage. You know, they have these. You have nowadays. You have a social media for everything. You know, a forum where you can just But that only is successful for smaller brands because they have the credibility. They don't mess up your data. They don't mess. I mean, and that's very valuable because they learn. I mean, they really learn the consumer's mind. They can really read the consumer's mind. This is what all the big players want, but they don't have access.
That's right.
So
it's interesting. I mean, we talk a lot about everything old being new again. Right? If you think about retail 100 years ago, you went to the small town square, you knew everybody who sold something. When you walked in, the butcher went, Benedict, oh, I have some pork chops you're gonna love today, because he knows you love pork chops. He knows you have a dog, so by the way, he's got a little package of scraps, so you could bring it home to your dog. And we love that. And then, to your point, Hugo, we tried to make everything be efficient, and we tried to get efficiencies of scale. And we tried to say, why is the butcher cutting everything in his back room? Why don't we make one factory for these 3 towns, and we'll cut up everything there and then ship it to the 3 towns. And then the 3 towns became 10 cities, and then 10 cities became half a country. And now in the United States, almost 90%, I believe, I might be wrong on the number, but it's a big percentage of the fish that we fish and catch in the United States is shipped to China for processing, and then they ship it back to us.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah.
It's crazy, right? So that you're right, the smaller business has this knowledge of your wife walking in and saying, hey, you know what, I got something new. I think you're gonna like it because it's what you regularly buy.
So we need tech for goods, innovation for goods, not just...
We definitely need innovation for goods, yes. That's a big, I think it's gonna become a bigger area.
No, yeah, hashtag innovation for good. Okay, I'm going to start using that hashtag.
You know what, it's funny. We talked to a client, we were looking at a cashierless payment, so it's sort of tap and go. And the reality is most grocery stores make a lot of money online because you're standing online with your kids and you're like, here's a candy bar. Oh, here's that magazine. I did forget to buy that. Or you're waiting online with your wife and she says, Benedict, we forgot to go get milk. Run back to the back of the store. And so you have that time because you're waiting online. So with all this cashierless payment, you're not waiting online anymore, right? So we're working with one of our clients and they loved it. They got all excited. And then about 2 weeks later, they called and said, hey, we really lose a lot of money if people aren't buying things online. Can you make another line that they have to wait in instead? And we're like, no. Like, that's a good way to piss people off. Like, you know, we talk about the laws of unintended consequences. Like we don't think if we do A that it's going to screw up B, and we need to be thinking more about that.
All right, very, very good. I think we are running out of time. David, I would like to say thank you very much for...
My pleasure.
Okay, and we hope to see you again as a participant or as a speaker, so feel free. And we have a group on Slack with almost 300 people, which is amazing because this project started in the late March when the lockdown started here in London.
Wow.
So, yeah, people like us, let's say, we share the passion for innovation, innovation for good, I think. So feel free to join and participate, and all of you.
We will.
Watch this on YouTube.
And anytime any of the group is in New York, they're welcome to stop by. We have a fridge full of beer and wine and coffee, and we're always happy to see human beings.
After COVID, New York is on my to-do list, let's say.
Great.
I was
come out and see us.
In May, but I canceled because of COVID.
Yeah.
And things in New York went south with COVID. So I was like, no, I'm not going to New York now.
It did get better, and hotels are running at about 30% occupancy.
It's a good moment to go from a price.
Good moment. You could get good deals.
Yes, I will find a good 5 stars in Manhattan for probably for the
yeah, for $185 that they'll give you to stay at the hotel.
Yeah. Exactly. David, it was a pleasure. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.
Great meeting everybody, and have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye bye. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.